Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. She didn't even look nervous. That's the part I still can't wrap my head around. She sat across from me at the restaurant, calmly tearing a paper napkin into little pieces, while the waiter poured her another glass of wine. She hadn't even touched the first. Then she said it, out loud, as if she were ordering dessert. I want one night with another man. Not, I'm thinking about it. Not, can we talk about something difficult? Just, I want. I blinked. I thought I misheard her. I even leaned forward like an idiot and asked, "Sorry, what?" She repeated it slower, softer, as if being gentle would dull the blade she'd just stuck in my chest. I looked around. No one else heard her. The waiter had walked away. Couples around us were busy in their own little bubbles. We were in our own bubble too, but mine had just burst. "What kind of joke is this?" I asked, though I already knew she wasn't joking. Her eyes weren't laughing. They were searching me, waiting for my reaction, like she'd already rehearsed how to defend it, how to spin it into something enlightened and empowering. She said, "I've never experienced anything else. Just you. We got together so young. I need to expand." Just once she swirled her wine like we were discussing travel plans, not infidelity. And when she looked up again, she said something that made my throat close. "I still love you. That hasn't changed. I just don't want to die wondering I felt like I was in a movie where the sound cuts out right before the climax." Her mouth kept moving, but I couldn't hear a thing. The clink of silverware, the chatter of people, the smooth jazz playing overhead, everything went dead silent in my ears. And that silence, it gave me clarity. She didn't care what this would do to me. Not really. She cared about her experience, her curiosity, her narrative. I didn't flip the table. I didn't storm out. I didn't cry. I just sat back, folded my hands, and waited for the waiter to return so I could order another drink, because the one in front of me suddenly tasted like ash. After a few minutes, I looked her in the eye and told her I had two answers, two paths, and whichever she chose, there'd be no going back. She didn't blink when I told her I had two choices for her. No shock, no guilt, no shame. Just that same expression, curious, composed, like she was flipping through a menu. I stared at her for a long time before speaking, letting the weight of her request settle between us like a bomb with a slow fuse. "You want one night with another man?" I said, leaning in slightly. "Fine. You can have it." Her eyes widened, but only for a second. Then she leaned back, cautious. I could tell she wasn't sure if I was serious or setting her up. That made it easier. "But," I continued, "here's the deal. You get two options. Just two." She nodded slowly. "Okay." I held up one finger. "First choice. You go through with your little experience. But when you come back, I won't be here. No scene, no shouting. I'll be gone. I won't answer your texts. I won't fight for alimony. I'll vanish. You'll wake up one morning and realize that whatever curiosity you had came at the cost of your husband." Then I held up a second finger. "Second choice. You drop this completely. No games, no delayed decisions. But you agree to sit down with me in front of a therapist and explain how you got to this point. And I'll listen. All of it. No interruptions. But you have to be honest. Brutally." She went quiet. And that's when I realized something chilling. She thought I was bluffing. She thought this was some emotional blackmail, a tactic to scare her into backing down. That smug little twitch at the corner of her mouth told me she still believed she had the power in this moment, that this dinner was hers to control. "I'll think about it," she said after a while, sipping her wine again. I nodded like I didn't care, but inside, I was disintegrating. Every second sitting across from her felt like a betrayal I was being forced to witness in slow motion. I paid the bill in silence. She offered to drive, but I refused. I didn't want to sit next to her. I didn't even want to breathe the same air. When I got home, I packed a bag. Just essentials, some clothes, my laptop, a toothbrush. I didn't plan to leave yet, but I wanted to be ready, just in case. Fergus, our dog, watched me from the hallway, tail down, sensing something was off. I didn't pet him. I couldn't. I felt like I was betraying him too. That night, she didn't try to talk. She slept soundly, back turned, as if she hadn't thrown a grenade into our life over appetizers. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining what kind of man Caleb was. Did he even know she was married? Did he think he was some grand escape for her? Or worse, did he like that she was married? The next morning, she made pancakes. Like nothing had happened. I didn't touch them. "I'm going to yoga," she said cheerfully. I didn't reply. She left without looking back, and as soon as the door shut, I opened her laptop. I know, it's wrong. But I had to know who this Caleb guy was. I needed to see the man my wife thought was worth shattering our vows for. What I found made my blood run cold. And it wasn't just about Caleb. It was what she had planned for after that night with him. Her inbox was wide open. No password, no locked screen. Like she never expected I'd look. And maybe that was the most insulting part. Not the betrayal itself, but the confidence that I'd never dig deep enough to catch her. I clicked into her messages and searched Caleb. It didn't take long. His name was saved with a little flame emoji. Disgusting. The first few messages were flirty, borderline innocent. "Great seeing you today," and "you killed it in that pose, lol." But then they shifted, rapidly. By the second week, she was telling him how limited she felt in our marriage. That word, limited, burned more than any curse word. She described me like I was a security blanket she'd outgrown. "Dalton's sweet, but he doesn't get me anymore," she wrote. "He wouldn't understand how badly I need this. Just one wild night to feel like I'm alive again." I scrolled with a clenched jaw. And then, there it was. Her plan. A message to Caleb dated 2 days ago. "Wednesday. I'll tell him I'm out with friends. Can't wait to see you." "Don't be late," she had already decided. Before she sat across from me at that restaurant, before she gave me that manipulative speech about honesty. She was never going to pick between my two options. She was just buying time, playing the innocent wife while laying bricks on a path straight into another man's bed. I wanted to throw the laptop through the wall. I wanted to wake her up from her yoga stretch fantasy and scream, "You already made your choice." But I didn't. I just sat there, reading, staring, letting it all crawl under my skin until I felt physically sick. And then I found the worst part. Buried in the chat log was a voice message. Just 15 seconds. I hesitated, hovering over the play button like it might explode. Then I clicked. It was her voice, soft and low, like she was whispering a dirty secret into his ear. "If he finds out, I'll spin it. I always do. Dalton never stands up for himself." I could cry for 10 seconds and he'd apologize. I paused the message halfway. I didn't need to hear the rest. That was how she saw me, a doormat. A man so dull, so easily manipulated, I could be emotionally steamrolled and still come crawling back. And the worst part? She wasn't wrong, not completely. I had let a lot slide. I had turned the other cheek when she belittled me in front of her friends or brushed off my feelings with a laugh. But this wasn't the same. This wasn't something to swallow and forget. It was the sound of my own wife turning me into a joke behind my back. That night, I didn't speak to her. I didn't even look at her. She came home all smiles, kissed me on the cheek like we weren't living on the edge of destruction, and asked if I wanted Thai for dinner. I just nodded numbly, stomach burning with every lie she fed me. While she was in the shower, I printed out the chat log, every line, every emoji-laced insult. I highlighted the line where she said I wouldn't stand up for myself. Then I wrote 5 words at the bottom in bold marker. "Watch me." Starting Wednesday night. I left the printout under her pillow. I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I planned. She had her night scheduled. So did I. And she had no idea who would be waiting at that hotel room when she walked in. Wednesday arrived like a storm I couldn't dodge. I called out sick from work. Not because I was falling apart. I had done enough of that in silence. But because I needed every second to prepare. Delilah thought I'd just sit home, maybe binge some old sitcoms and eat leftover pizza while she slipped into someone else's arms for her one wild night. But that version of me, the soft, spineless husband, was gone. Or maybe he'd just finally woken up. I started by confirming the hotel. The name was in the chat, buried in a message she thought I'd never see. Got the room at the Holloway Inn. Room 307. I'll bring wine. You bring... you. That message alone made my skin crawl, but I saved it. I wanted the reminder, the motivation. Pain sharpens focus, and I was painfully focused. I drove to the Holloway just after noon and asked for a room across the hall from 307. The clerk didn't ask questions. I paid in cash and checked in with no luggage. Just a messenger bag with 2 things inside. the printed chat log, and a voice recorder. I wasn't interested in vengeance. I wanted clarity. I wanted truth. And above all, I wanted her to hear herself. Not from me, from her own lips, unfiltered, uninterrupted. At 5:42 p.m., I watched her pull into the parking lot from behind the tinted window of my room. She looked nervous, dressed in that red coat she only wore when she wanted attention. Her phone was in her hand. I could guess the message she was typing. Something like, "Traffic was a nightmare. Just got here." Probably with another emoji. I waited 10 minutes before walking out. I knocked once on 307, no answer. Then again, louder. I heard the shuffle inside, the pause. Then the door opened. She stood there, face pale, holding a bottle of wine in one hand and her phone in the other. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. "Where's Caleb?" I asked, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. She moved aside slowly, stunned. "Dalton, what are you doing here?" "What do you think?" I said, setting my bag on the table. "I read everything." I heard the voice message. "The one where you called me weak." Her eyes widened. You went through my messages?" "Oh, now you care about privacy?" I laughed bitterly. "Tell me, Delilah, what exactly was your plan? Sleep with him and come home to me? Or were you hoping he'd fall in love and rescue you from the life you regret? I didn't think you'd actually—" She stopped, then sighed. "I didn't think you'd find out. But you were going to do it anyway." She didn't deny it, just looked down at the floor like a child caught cheating on a test. I took the recorder out of my bag and hit play. Her voice filled the room, distorted but clear. "Dalton never stands up for himself." I could cry for 10 seconds and he'd apologize. She winced. I paused it. "Still think that?" "No," she said quickly, tears building in her eyes now. "Dalton, I didn't mean it like that. I was just venting. I didn't mean any of this to hurt you. But you did. And you were going to go through with it. You were going to lie to my face and walk into this room with someone else." She collapsed onto the edge of the bed, silent. "You had 2 choices," I reminded her, "and you picked a third. Betrayal." "I didn't sleep with him," she whispered, "but you were going to." She nodded slowly. "Yes." I walked to the door and opened it. "Then we're done here." She stood suddenly, panicked. "Wait, Dalton, please. We can fix this." "I already fixed it," I said without looking back. "Just not the way you thought." And with that, I stepped out, leaving the door wide open, like the trust she shattered. I thought walking away would be the end. I imagined some cinematic moment where I'd step into the hallway, leave her sitting there in a puddle of regret, and the credits would roll on our marriage. But life doesn't work like that. Regret doesn't hit all at once. It creeps in slowly, after the adrenaline fades, after the silence sets in. And hers came knocking exactly 23 hours later. She showed up at my sister's house, where I'd been crashing, looking like she hadn't slept. No makeup, no coat, just standing there with red-rimmed eyes and that same damn planner clutched to her chest like it was a shield. "Can we talk?" she said quietly. My sister was in the kitchen. She looked at me, silently asking if I wanted her to stay or disappear. I nodded toward the hallway. She left without a word. Delilah stepped inside and stood awkwardly, as if the floor itself was waiting to collapse under her. "I know I don't deserve to speak," she began, "but I need to tell you something. Not to fix this. I know I broke everything, but because you need to know the whole story." I folded my arms, unsure if I even wanted to hear it. Every cell in my body screamed to shut the door on her, but I let her talk. I needed to know just how deep the damage went. She didn't sit. She just stood there in the entryway, rambling through shallow breaths. Caleb wasn't some fling I planned for months. I didn't meet him and instantly fall into lust. It was stupid and sudden and weird. Weird? I didn't even know his last name until a week ago, she continued. We started talking after class. He complimented my earrings. That's it. One compliment, and I started unraveling. It wasn't him, Dalton. It was me. I've been feeling invisible for so long. Not because of you, because of me. Like my body's changing, my life's on autopilot, and I needed something. I raised an eyebrow. So you decided to rewrite the rules of our marriage for validation? No, she cried, shaking her head. I was going to back out. I swear. When you gave me those two choices, I realized I didn't want either. I wanted to tell you the truth, but I didn't know how. You literally wrote a lie into your planner. She flinched. I know. I panicked. I didn't know if I could come back from this. I didn't expect you to show up at that room. I thought I'd walk away at the door. I thought I'd feel sick, and I did feel sick when I saw you instead of him. But not because I was caught, because I finally saw what I was about to lose. There it was again, that crafted narrative. Just enough guilt to look sincere, just enough spin to sound redemptive. I'd heard that voice before. In therapy sessions she ghosted. In arguments she derailed with tears. But then she said something different, something that didn't fit the script. I never told you this, she whispered, but 6 months ago, I took a pregnancy test. That stopped me cold. She looked up at me, tears streaming now. It was negative. But for 3 days, I thought I was pregnant, and I didn't tell you because I was terrified. Not of the baby, of how small I felt, of how unready I was to be responsible for anything else. My chest tightened. We'd talked about kids before, lightly, like a someday thing. But this wasn't about someday. This was about the fact that for 3 days, she carried a secret that could have changed everything. And instead of turning toward me, she turned outward, into chaos, into someone else's arms, into a fantasy where consequences didn't exist. I didn't know what hurt more, the affair that almost happened, or the life she shut me out of completely. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she said, voice cracking. I just needed you to know it wasn't about Caleb. It was about me falling apart and not having the guts to say it out loud. For once there were no defenses, no anger in me, just silence. Deep, aching silence. She left without asking to stay. But what she didn't know was that someone else had just entered the picture, and they had information that would flip everything upside down. 2 days passed. I didn't call her. She didn't show up again. The silence should have felt peaceful, like finally stepping out of the storm. But it didn't. It felt unfinished, like a chapter I wasn't allowed to close yet. I kept replaying her words, wondering if she had been telling the truth or just trying to soften the fallout. I hated that I still cared. I hated that part of me wanted to believe her. But I couldn't trust my own judgment anymore, not after everything. Then came the message. It was from an unknown number, just a few words. If you're Dalton, we need to talk. It's about Delilah. Please, my gut instinct was to ignore it. Trolls, spam, whatever. I didn't want more drama, but something felt different. The tone wasn't aggressive, it was careful, intentional, and after what I'd just lived through, I figured I had nothing left to lose. I replied, "Who is this?" The response came quickly. "My name's Sienna. I'm Caleb's ex." My heart skipped. Caleb. That Caleb. The one Delilah claimed to barely know. The one whose name I'd only seen wrapped in emoji-laced messages. I stared at the screen, adrenaline flooding in all over again. Before I could respond, she sent another message. I didn't want to get involved, but after what Delilah said to him, I think you deserve to know what's really going on. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop across town, neutral ground. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, didn't want to explain why I was chasing answers from the ghost of a man I'd never met. When I arrived, she was already sitting there, young, early 30s maybe, dressed in workout clothes, no makeup, hair tied back like she hadn't slept either. "You must be Dalton," she said, offering a nervous smile. I nodded, unsure what to expect. "I debated a long time about whether to contact you," she began. "But Caleb, he's not innocent in this. And I think Delilah was playing a game neither of you fully understood." I said nothing, just waited. "She told Caleb you were abusive," she said bluntly. My breath caught. "What?" "She said you were controlling, cold, emotionally manipulative, that she needed a safe escape, that he'd be doing her a favor." My mouth went dry. All I could do was shake my head. I wasn't perfect, but I'd never laid a hand on Delilah. Never even raised my voice in a way that could be considered threatening. If anything, I'd spent most of our marriage tiptoeing around her moods. "She painted herself as a victim," Sienna continued. "And Caleb, he falls for that kind of thing, over and over. I've seen him do it before, but this time, something felt off. And then he showed me the message from you, the one you sent when you found out I frowned. I never messaged him." She pulled out her phone, showed me a screenshot, and there it was, A long, angry message from Dalton, filled with threats and rage. But it wasn't from my number. She faked it, I whispered. Sienna nodded. She created a burner account. Sent it to Caleb to make you look dangerous, to justify everything. He even asked her if she wanted to file a police report. She said no, said you were just emotional. But I knew it didn't add up, so I started digging. She slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were printed screenshots, dates, timelines, photos. One showed Delilah and Caleb together outside a bar, 2 weeks before she ever asked me for a night with him. Another showed a receipt from the Holloway Inn, dated 3 days before she claimed to have made the booking. They'd been planning it for much longer than she admitted. She had lied, not just about her intentions, but about the very nature of what had happened. She'd manipulated both of us, used Caleb's sympathy, used my silence, spun a web tight enough to trap herself inside it. "I'm not here to make you hate her," Sienna said quietly. "I just thought you deserved the real story." Before she twisted again, I thanked her, though the words felt hollow. I left the cafe clutching the envelope like it was a bomb, and in many ways, it was. That night, Delilah texted me again. Just 3 words. "Can we talk?" This time, I replied. "Sure, but you won't like where..." Because I had one more surprise for her, and it wasn't at home. She arrived 10 minutes late. I was already seated when she walked into the small conference room I'd rented in a co-working building downtown. Nothing fancy, just 4 chairs, a table, and the kind of beige walls that make everyone slightly uncomfortable. She paused in the doorway when she saw me, clutching her purse like it could shield her from whatever was coming. She was dressed carefully, too carefully. Makeup done, hair straightened, wearing that deep green blouse I used to compliment all the time. I almost laughed. It was her performance armor. "Why here?" she asked softly. I didn't answer right away. I just gestured to the chair across from mine. She sat. Her eyes scanned the room like she expected someone else to be hiding in the corner. She didn't know how right she was. I placed the manila envelope on the table between us. Her eyes flicked to it, then quickly away. "I met someone," I said calmly. "Her name's Sienna." That got her attention. She stiffened, her lips parting slightly. I don't know a Sienna." "You don't, but Caleb does," I said. "And she knew enough to show me everything you didn't." A flicker of panic crossed her face, but she tried to suppress it behind practiced confusion. "What are you talking about?" I slid the envelope toward her. "Your texts. The fake message you sent Caleb pretending to be me. The hotel receipt from the week before your little request at dinner. The pictures, the timeline. Do you want to keep pretending, or should we skip ahead?" She stared at the folder, but didn't touch it. Her hands were trembling slightly now. "Dalton, I don't know what she told you, but you have to understand. Caleb isn't well. He twists things." "She didn't say anything," I said. "Your own messages did the talking." Her mouth opened, then closed. For the first time in this entire mess, she didn't have a ready lie. "I gave you 2 choices," I said slowly. "You chose to ignore both. You staged your betrayal like it was some enlightened experiment. You planned it with someone you barely knew, told him I was abusive, made me out to be some monster so you could justify cheating, and then you lied to my face, again and again. But here's what I realized. None of this was about Caleb. Not really. He was just the character you cast in your drama. This was always about control, about seeing how far you could push before I pushed back. I was scared," she whispered. "I felt like I was disappearing." "So you decided to make me disappear first?" She finally looked up. Her eyes were brimming now, and for once it wasn't just part of the act. "I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know how to say I was drowning. Then you shouldn't have pulled me under with you." The door opened quietly behind her. She turned around, confused, as my sister stepped in. Delilah's eyes widened. "What is she doing here?" "She's here to witness what I'm about to say," I replied, "because I'm done having these conversations in secret. I'm done being the quiet one. I need someone to hear the words I'm finally saying out loud." Delilah stood, defensive now. "This is humiliating." "No," I said calmly. "This is accountability." I pulled out a single sheet of paper. Not a lawyer's letter, not divorce papers. Just a written statement with everything she'd done, signed by me, time-stamped, dated. A record of truth, because I knew that one day she'd twist this story again. She'd tell friends, family, future partners a version that made her the misunderstood heroine. I was making sure the truth existed in ink. "I don't want anything from you," I said. "No apology, no explanation. You've already said enough. This is closure, mine, not yours." Delilah didn't speak again. She walked out with her head down, and this time I didn't follow. I didn't wait for tears or excuses or empty promises. I let the silence follow her, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like peace. But just when I thought the chapter was closed, a knock came on my door that same evening, and what I saw when I opened it, it changed everything. Again. I wasn't expecting anyone that evening. The day had already been too full of tension, of reckoning, of words that couldn't be unsaid. I was mentally exhausted. I'd turned off my phone. I was halfway through folding the laundry I'd ignored all week when the knock came. 3 quiet taps, no doorbell, just deliberate. I opened the door slowly, not sure what I was bracing for. It wasn't Delilah, it was Sienna. She stood there with a small, uncertain smile and a folder in her hand. "I know this might seem weird," she said, "but there's one more thing you should see." I stepped aside and let her in. Not because I wanted more drama, but because, for once, she'd been the one person who gave me clarity. She sat at my kitchen table and slid the folder across. "This," she said, "is a restraining order Caleb filed against his last girlfriend. 2 years ago, very similar pattern. Emotional manipulation, half-truths, chaos. I'm telling you this because you need to stop thinking this was your fault." Delilah didn't just slip. She learned how to lie from someone who builds relationships on false narratives. I read through it slowly, carefully, realizing how deep I'd allowed myself to drown in guilt over something I never caused. I kept thinking that if I'd been more exciting, more attentive, more spontaneous, she wouldn't have strayed. But this wasn't about excitement. It was about deception. And I finally saw it for what it was. When Sienna got up to leave, she paused at the door. "You're not weak, Dalton," she said. "You're just someone who gave love honestly." "That's not weakness?" "That's rare," I didn't respond. But those words stayed with me long after she was gone. It's been 4 months since that night. Delilah moved out of state. We finalized the divorce quietly. No court battles, no headlines. Just 2 signatures on paper and a final, hollow handshake. She didn't fight for anything. I think part of her knew she didn't deserve to. I've since moved into a new place. Smaller, simpler. Fergus sleeps beside my bed now. I take him on walks without needing to explain where I'm going. I'm learning how to live without constantly anticipating the next emotional landmine. And honestly, that kind of peace is louder than any apology. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm just free. If you're watching this and you've ever been made to feel like your love wasn't enough, let me tell you something. Love is never the problem. The person who treats it like a disposable thing, that's the problem, and you don't have to carry their shame any longer.